Hello and welcome, everybody. We'll just wait a couple more minutes for people to start trickling in, and we'll get started. Usually I would say that, hey, guys, go grab some snacks, wait a little bit, network, but clearly that's not the case. So just bear with me for a minute or so more, and we'll dive right into the webinar/tutorial. Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are going to be doing more and more of these webinars/tutorials to kind of give people an oversight on how to capitalize their experiences on the Resemble platform. So last week we had the webinar about recording voices on the platform, or when it comes to recording data to upload, and what are the best practices. The webinars are recorded and they will be posted on YouTube, and we'll share with them via the email as well. And as I'll be speaking and going over the tool itself and showing you different options, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them as we're going along. So by the time I get to the end of the presentation, we'll have some Q&As to address. With that note, I will go ahead and just navigate to the tool and get started with the tutorial. So give me 1 second here. Perfect. So, most of you probably have come across, have used the Resemble tool after cloning the voices, or used it with just the stock voices that are there. So before I go into the tool, and I have it filled out with some of the scripts that I wanted to showcase. If you haven't, I'll just give you a quick overview on what the projects page mean, and clips and what have you. So projects, think of it as a folder, and clips are the audio files in that. So you can have as many projects as you like. And you can go ahead and also, if you wanted to delete a project after you're done with it, and if you click on the setting buttons, this is where you can invite people to the project, team collaboration, those sort of things. So I will just go ahead right into the clips and click on the demo one that I have generated for this webinar. So once you get here, obviously the page will be empty. And the way we have it broken down is these segments or blocks. And what that allows you to do is have a more of a conversational based dialogue that you're looking to generate. And also, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about what these icons mean here. And on top of that, it also allows you to duplicate dialogue and change the voices. So it gives you, again, that conversational feel that you're looking for. So I'll just go ahead and get started with the first sentence here. And the voices, once it's deployed, are on the left voice box here. And over here, I have 3 voices. And I can go ahead and say, okay, you know what? I'll pick Grace. I type out the sentence. And the green button here is for preview. So I can go ahead and preview and see what this will sound like.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
Perfect. Hopefully you guys were able to hear that. I do believe I have my share with sound. That is correct. Just confirming. Awesome. So as you saw, this was what the model predicted. The model was trained, with the data set for grays, and this is what the model predicts it would say without any manual, massaging to it per se. So I go to the next sentence, and I'm like, okay, this sounds good. I like it, but it's not really what I'm looking for. So I go to the emotion and I want to increase the pace. So here you see expressiveness, aggressiveness, and pace. So there's three things. Expressiveness is the pitch of the voice. Aggressive is the loudness, and pace is the speed. Now you also have the option to pick from the dropdown. So we give what the model predicts on, based on the data set that we train it on what angry, annoyed, question, happy is going to be. And it predicts those, and you can highlight those, and it will pick the gradient, the emotion gradient for you. And if you like, you can go ahead and also set your own. So for example, let's say I set this one. I'm like, okay, you know what? I like the way that it's really quick and the fact that the pitch picks up at the end. I can go ahead and save this to the library. And in the near future, we'll be actually adding a feature for you to just add this from here. So you'll just have a drop down and say, okay, save this to the library. And you can call it, ramp or a speed or whatever name you want to give it to that gradient, emotion gradient. You'll be able to pick it from the drop down. So you won't have to do this manually every time. And the other thing is at the bottom right here, so there's a drop down with the weights on them. So for example, you set something up and you're like, okay, you know what? Instead of going there, trying to drag and drop, I can just go ahead and change the weights on them. So see, for example, here, if I go there, it changes it. And if I go up, it keeps doing that, or I can just go ahead and drag it up. So it's up to you, whichever way you want to use. And that comes in handy when you're trying to get it really granular, and you're trying to, just put a number in there instead of saying, okay, can I get it to 63 without, having to really zoom in and play around with the toggle over here. So I'll go ahead and get out of this right here. 1 second. Apologies. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and play this sample.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my voice sped up.
Again, as you saw, that her voice pace increases and also the pitch changes at the end because I had that expressiveness gradient applied just to on the sound in my voice sped up part. So that's where you can utilize and say, okay, you know what, now this sounds good, but I want to go ahead and generate the same sentence, but maybe change a word or two. So instead of going ahead retyping the sentence or copy pasting, you can just quickly press on duplicate and it will just populate that. So you don't have to worry about, copy pasting or typing the whole sentence again. And if you're okay, I just want to change, 1 or 2 words here, which I do in this sentence here. Instead of saying my voice sped up, I'm saying my normal voice. So I can just go ahead quickly and say, okay, what did I do here? So if I go into the emotion tag, again, I'm making her the pace really fast, or it picks up smoothly, and then it really gets really fast at the end, and then the pitch gets higher too near the end. So again, I'll just go ahead and generate this sample for you.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
So as you can tell, at the end, the pitch really increases. Again, it depends on what the use case you're looking for. Maybe, some use cases are where you want the pitch to be really high. Again, it depends on, whatever the end result is, but you have that, capability. And the great thing about, again, this emotion gradient tool is that it's not, some people ask, okay, do you have Ssml? Sure, we have Ssml. As you can see, we have the emphasis tag right here. And then, we have the prosody, which is, again, helps you with the pitch, volume, and what have you. What we realized with custom voices was using those tags didn't really, deliver the result we were looking for. So it would not distort the voice, but with Ssml tags, it would be the clip is generated and then the audio files are together. So for example, if I were to say, okay, make this loud, it'll be, this is a test score to see how this would sound in my normal voice. And that's not, the naturalness that we're trying to deliver with our custom voices. So we built our own emotion gradient to kind of allow you to do that. And that's why, you have the ability to go ahead and be as granular as you want, even to the syllable level. So it doesn't have to be the full sentence, as I would display it, in examples that are just underneath these sentences to show you that it could be done on a word level as well. And obviously, because I think I work at Resemble, and I have a pretty big ego, I guess you could say, because I like the sound of my voice. And I went ahead and generated some sentences in my voice. So this is just me speaking normally, and I'll just go ahead and do
This
that.
is a test to see how this would sound if I speak normally.
This is how it would sound if I speak normally. Clearly, this is how it would sound like. And now I wanted to go ahead and change it up and say, okay, what it would sound like if I was speaking really quickly. And again, if I will just go into the gradient emotion tool itself, as you can see, the pace, I've increased it to be really high. And if I just get out of this and play the sampler for you guys,
This is a test to see how this would sound if I speak quickly.
again, the pace picks up. And I'll just play this guy so you guys can hear the differences.
This is a test to see how this would sound if I speak normally.
Again, changing the tool, right, with the emotion gradient makes it quicker. And then the great thing about this is, since it's the emotion gradients applied as the audio is being generated, it's not applying after the audio is generated. So it sounds very natural. And the inflection intonation changes with the gradient itself. So here's another example in my voice. Here, I also added a little bit of aggressiveness, and as you can see, the pitch itself. So I wanted to make myself sound with a higher pitch, because why not?
This is a test to see how this would sound if I speak quickly.
So see at the end, you can see the quickly goes quickly. Again, that's the flexibility that we offer with the emotion gradients, and helps you manipulate that audio content, that you're really looking to generate for your use cases, which hasn't been possible if you were using any of the TTS solutions and applying the Ssml tags. Again, this is another example in my voice. And what I wanted to showcase here is that it doesn't have to be on the full sentence. So the beginning of the sentence, I want to keep it, in my normal, whatever the model predicts it to be. But at the end, I want myself to pick up pace. So I'll just go ahead and show you that. So if I just highlight the whole thing, as you can see here, this is not highlighted. So all these are not obviously, picked to any of the emotion gradients, but it just picks up right where I say, if I speak very quickly. So I'll cancel out of here, and I'll go ahead and generate this to showcase what the example that I'm trying to relay over here.
This is a test to see how this would sound if I speak very quickly.
Again, if I speak very quickly, picks up really fast. So this is to showcase that, again, you don't have to do it on a word by word, on a full sentence level. You could do it on just a part of the paragraph or the passage that you're typing. One thing that I would address here is, if you're doing longer passages, maybe 4 sentences, 5 sentences, it's best to break them down in, in different blocks over here. Because if you were to generate a sentence and everything else sounds good, but you just want to change one sentence, you will have to regenerate the full sentence. So that comes in handy. So if you were to do a longer paragraph, just do in block by block, sentence by sentence cases, so that if you were to change something, it'll be a quick iteration, and you don't have to worry about changing the other sentences that sounded great to begin with. And one other thing over here in this segment, it's great, is that you're able to move up and down the blocks using the drag and drop. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, okay, you're kind of set in stone that if you generated a sentence here and you want to change the dialogue, you don't have to go ahead and say, oh, okay, I need to retype the sentence over here or delete this. You can just go ahead and drag it from here and just put it up there. It's easy as that. So I'll go ahead and I want to showcase some other samples of different voices just to give you an idea of what's possible. So here's the sentence. Again, this is what the model is predicting. I'm not doing any manual touches to that, so I'll just go ahead and play that.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
And the example and the point I want to make here is to focus on the sound. So what I'm doing here, if I go to the emotion, I'm making it really aggressive. So I am saying the sound part of the sentence should be really loud. So I'll just cancel this. So the other sentence remained the same, and sound is where she's really, aggressive, and there's emphasis on it.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
Again, I'm hoping that you guys can hear the difference, but if you were to, listen on headphones, this is where it's very slow and mellow and just in one tone. And this is where it says how it would sound in my normal voice. Again, that's what it comes down to with the emotion gradient. With Ssml tags or other emphasis, it's hard to get that, because if you were to apply it here, it would be, like I mentioned, this would sound in my normal voice. And with the emotion gradient tool that we have built for the custom voice, it allows you to kind of blend it in on both sides of the sentences, and it makes it as natural as a sentence should be. And this is just, again, just in the other normal voice that I was mentioning. If I were to play this, sound like the just generated what the model predicts. Other things that we have built on the tool itself is pauses. I know some people ask like, hey, I want to add a pause here. So if I were to play, for example, this is a sentence same as this one, but in this one we're adding a pause. So I'll just play this for reference.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
And this is where I'm adding a pause for 25 seconds.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
Again, it doesn't change, it doesn't break. It's not like it's two sentences put together. It's a normal pause, and then it just goes back into the sentence. And the way you insert pauses, it's right here. So here, let me just go ahead and delete this so I can show it to you guys. So let's say this is where I want to add a pause. I can just go to the toggle here. So the great thing is that you have a toggle bar that you want to just play around with, or you can just simply go ahead and type in the pause. So it doesn't have to be like you trying to get, again, say, oh, okay, I want, 63 seconds or what have you. You can just utilize the box here and input the pause that you're looking for. Another great thing is part of the speech stack that we've been, we're pretty excited that we released not too long ago, which is when you have, two words that are the same, and then the model doesn't pick up on what it should sound like. So for example, if the sentence was, I like to read books while driving to Reading, what it would do is it would say, I like to read books while driving to Reading, right? So for example here, so since I type out the sentence, this is populated automatically. And it would say, okay, I think this is a verb that's present tense, and this is a city. But let's say, for example, if it didn't pick up, you're able to change that, say, okay, you know what, this should be a verb that's past tense. And this should be, the verb. I don't know why you would say I like to read books while driving to Reading, but by all means. But in this case, it's the present tense of the verb read, and over here, this is a city. So I'll go ahead and play that.
I like to read books while driving to Reading.
So this is, again, perfect when you have cases where the two words are the same and you're trying to say, okay, how do I change, you don't have to play around on a phonetic level. You don't have to worry about changing the spellings or anything of that nature. You can just go ahead and manipulate or change the pop-up underneath the words, and you can go get on with your day and get the sentence generated the way you're looking for. So I had another example here that I wanted to showcase. The dove was flying low and dove into the ocean. Again, same thing. If you were to just type it in to, just the regular TTS, it will say the dove was flying low and dove into the ocean, or it might generate, say, okay, maybe it was dove. The dove was flying low and dove into the ocean. Where in this case, you have the option to say, okay, the second one is a verb and the first verb is a noun. So let's go ahead and generate this one.
The dove was flying low and dove into the ocean.
Perfect. So again, don't have to worry about how do I get the sentences to sound correctly when you have heteronyms and in those cases. Another great thing that I wanted to showcase was the variable. And, we shared this with our users not too long ago. And I just wanted to demonstrate and how that could be utilized. Again, this comes in handy when you're trying to generate content at a scale and you don't want to sit there and, again, type in, okay, can I please speak with, Tom, Jeff, Robert, or what have you, and you're just copy pasting those. You can just go ahead and quickly create a variable. So like I did here. So for example, if I was doing this right now, I would say, okay, can I please speak with, and type in the name, highlight it, and I can say, okay, it's a variable. And I go to the right side. Now we have a pretty nifty tool here for variables. It populated the name. Perfect. I can open up this box and say, okay, John, Tom, Robert. Perfect. Go ahead. And if I come back here, it's populated the sentences with those names. So this is great, especially in cases where you're trying to create more sentences and you want to keep the same inflection intonation, and you want to be able to generate content quickly by just changing one or two things in those sentences. So if I go and play this, so it generates it.
Can I please speak with John? Can I please speak with Tom? Can I please speak with Robert?
Again, same inflection intonation. The only thing changes is the name at the end. So again, comes in really handy when you're doing content that needs to be dynamic and at a scale. And this could be, utilized in those cases instead of you having to either sit there, type a sentence, duplicate it, and change the end word, the end word of the sentence, and you can just go ahead and do that automatically and programmatically. Another, just on the tool itself. So as I mentioned, the pauses can be added here. Emphasis, which I mentioned, it could be utilized, but we recommend our users and suggest that you utilize the emotion gradient that I showcased for the custom voices, because it helps getting that natural sounding content that you're looking to generate. Another thing is the phoneme. So this comes in handy when you're trying to, again, utilize, generate a sentence where the pronunciation of the word needs to be changed. So for example, if I were to, I read the book by Book, not Book. That's a different word, I think. Maybe not a word. But Professor, clearly I have a case of extra O's today. Cialdini. So if I were to generate this right now, it would say Cialdini because that's what the model predicts. But I know the name is Italian. So if I go ahead and highlight this and say, okay, the phoneme, and it populates it on the right side. If I scroll down to it, so I know the language. So what I want you guys to pay attention is the applied IPA. So right now, it's generated based on what the English is. And if I change this to Italian and say generate, it changes the phoneme. So this is what comes in handy when you're trying to get those pronunciations for names or cities or what have you. And this is where this could be utilized from there. So that was the the phoneme feature. As I mentioned, we have the volume, pitch, and pace if you want to utilize that, but the emotion gradient does a better job in doing that. And saying each character, if you want to spell out the word, the emotion gradient, which I gave a pretty good walkthrough over right now, and then substitute is if you wanted to type in a word, and these are just let's say abbreviations of a word, and you don't want to keep typing them over and over again, you can just go ahead and do that. So for example, if I wanted to say type in NBA, but every time I do this, I want it to say National Basketball Association, I can add that to the library. And when the audio is generated, it will actually pronounce National Basketball Association instead of saying NBA. So that's a quick overview on how to utilize the emotional gradient and how to craft that the speech that you're really looking for by adding or manipulating the the different the tools that we have to get the content that you're really looking for. Another thing that we are working on, which we'll be releasing shortly, and we'll hold a tutorial webinar on that tool as well, is the idea of copy pasting style. So the way that would work is, for example, if I said, okay, this sounds great, or let's say pick this voice. Okay, the voice is great. I like the way it's this saying those the sentences, but I'm not really happy with the inflection intonation that's there. So what you'll be able to do is record that sentence in your voice, copy the style from your voice, and then we'll be able to paste it to that synthetic voice. So now you're able to generate that sentence with the style that you had in mind. Again, that would be, that comes in handy when you're crafting speech that you're not really able to capture even by manipulating the emotions. And that's something that we'll be, adding shortly in the near future. And we'll definitely, share with our users once that's available on the platform. That's it for me. I will go ahead and navigate to the question Q&As and go from there. Okay, the first question. Yes, that is correct, Greg. So the when it's at the middle, that's by default a 50%. So if you were to go in and not change anything and just maybe put it on the the 50% and just type it there, it would just say it by default. So the question was, when it comes to expressiveness or any of the emotion gradients, is the default level 50% before the manual setting? That is correct. So I'll just go ahead and quickly go back to the screen to address that and to showcase what the question is asking. So here, let me go back here. So for example, let's pick this part because there's no emotion on it. So by default, yes, everything is at 50%, and you can go ahead and manipulate. So if I were to say, pick this here and say pace is going to be this, pace is going to be this, it's going to, by default, just generate what the model would have predicted anyways, instead of applying the 50%. So that's where it starts. So that was the question by Greg. Thank you. So Christopher is asking, so is there no way of to preview the effect in the editor window? Not at the moment. So to generate, to preview the, the emotion gradients that you're applying, you would have to go to click on apply. So here, let me go back to the screen. Maybe I'll keep it open. So yeah, once you're here and you picked something, you would have to apply and then come back to the screen and press on play to generate that content. But that's a good point you bring up. I'll definitely bring it back to my team and see what we can do over there so that you don't have to keep coming back to the screen. Okay, the next question. The question by Greg is, any chance you would adopt a JSON definition of the clip instead of Ssml? I will pass that on to my colleague Zohaib, who will jump in to address that.
Yeah, you're going to make a lot of engineers happy. But unfortunately, right now, there's no concrete plan for JSON, but we are experimenting alternatives to SSML as well. So we'll keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you, Zohaib. The next question by David, is the pause being predicted or added after? Great question. So it depends on what the model learned. So for example, if you give us training data set where there's commas and you're pausing at those commas, that's what the model learned. So if I were to let's say generate the sentence, and if I had recorded a data set with that in mind, if we were to insert a comma here, it would take a pause and then it would continue the sentence because that's what the model learned. In this case, since the model didn't really learn me taking pauses at commas, I have to insert the pauses here, and that's where it does it. But still, even though it does it within the sentence itself, it's still doing it naturally. So it's not like this is a test to see how it would sound if I speak normally. So it does still flow into the latter part of the sentence, and keeps that naturalness. So you're not losing that inflection intonation. Is there a way to age the voice? Not at the moment, and no. Something that we haven't really looked on how to manipulate the voices per se. Again, this is something that we're looking into how we can offer for you to not distort the voices per se, but how we can change maybe some parameters. So to address that question, no, there's not a way to age the voice at the moment. Can you say more about the difference between emphasis and emotion? Sure thing. So let me go back here. So if I were to go back to this sentence where I'm saying this is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice. So let's say, I'll go ahead and just duplicate this and say, instead of, we'll delete this emotion from here, and we're going to apply the emphasis. And emphasis is pretty strong. So we'll just go ahead and generate this. Okay, clearly that did not work. Let me go ahead and play this one.
This is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice.
So this is where, the sound is really high. But if I were to do it here, this is where the emphasis tags get applied. And this is where, the example I mentioned is, this is a test to see how this would sound in my normal voice. So that naturalness isn't there anymore. That's the reason we ended up building our own proprietary emotion gradient tool to address those questions, because when people did apply these SSML tags, whether it was emotion or changing the pitch and the rate using the SSML tags, it would distort the audio in a way that it would generate the audio with SSML tag and combine them together. And that's what we recommend users to utilize the emotion tool when it comes to adding the aggressiveness, which is, in this case, when I go here. So if I were to, let me get out of this one. Let me go back to this one. This is where I have it applied. So aggressiveness, which is, in a sense, making it louder, emphasizing it. We recommend utilizing the emotion gradient instead of the emphasis tool. Okay. The next question is emotion ML used in this?
We can take that one. No, we don't use emotion ML at the moment, but we didn't know how popular it was at all. So if that's something that you're familiar with, then feel free to reach out to us. We can investigate what we can do there.
All right. And I think the next question, so if you want to take that too, do you have any idea what your mean MOS score on voice naturalness is at the moment? I know we had some, yeah.
So we had a paper maybe a couple of months ago. I can maybe dig it out and paste it in the link right after I answer the question. But the opinion score or the mean opinion score that came after that was a little bit higher than the one from NVIDIA's Waveglow or previous vocoders that came out. So combined with altogether the end-to-end pipeline, it's fairly close to ground truth. But I can maybe send the paper across there, and you can, if you want to take a read, you could do that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, the next question is what options we have to change or tweak the pronunciation of certain words. I was working on the word Amsterdam, but I could not get the pronunciation how I liked it. Does the IPA script work? So since you're more informed on the IPA world, do you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, so this is it's one of the things that we're looking to improve on. A lot of the pronunciations across different words requires a little bit more data. So if you built a voice with like 50 clips or 50 sentences, then there's a probability that not all of the phoneme or diphones would be picked up properly. So most of the time, the IPA works really well. But if it doesn't, just feel free to reach out to us, and we can try to figure out what we can do to get that to work properly.
Perfect. Could we have a feature to see Ssml for just one clip?
Yeah, maybe you could demonstrate that. Going back to the last question really quickly, sometimes the pronunciation, the best way of fixing it is instead of IPA, just writing the word broken down into syllables. So like if you go on Google and literally search how to say the word Amsterdam or how to say Amsterdam, Google actually tells you in syllables what that sounds like. So it'll be like if you type in, if you type in the words with those syllables or respell it in a particular way, you can actually get that word to be said. And sometimes it's easier than playing around with those with IPA.
Perfect. So next question by Greg was, could we have a feature to see Ssml for just one clip? Yeah, so when you're on the editor page and for example, I'll just take this and I'll just showcase what I applied, the emotion, and I want to check what the Ssml is. I can just click on view Ssml and it gives me the Ssml code right here.
Yeah, I think Greg is also asking if we can do it on just one of those, we'll call them segments. And yeah, that's a great point. We could surface that as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Again, I think my question is about the pronunciation and IPA, which Zohaib addressed. The next question is, if a pause is added, like 25 seconds that I added, is that the pause added after the model predicts the audio or given to the model as a parameter? Oh, Zohaib, sorry. Are you?
Sorry, give me 1 second. If pause added. Yeah, so this is similar to the first question. If you're adding the break at the moment, we played around with a couple of different alternatives for this. One was like getting the model to predict that pause, or inserting it afterwards. Right now, it does a mixture of kind of both. It tries to like generate the audio clip with the pause predicted, and then if that doesn't go right, it'll actually break the sentence into two. And then it kind of adds a pause in there artificially afterwards. So the pause right now, I know a lot of people are looking to get that to work better than it currently is. So it's a work in progress.
Perfect. A question about what kind of, I think, data you would need for the emotion. So to apply the emotions, the question is, in order for the custom voice to have those emotions, could a plain voice delivery do, or do we need to record in similar emotions in order for the model to learn? Thank you. That's a great question. So if you were to, let's say, record 50 sentences or upload data that was, very monotone and neutral, and once the model is trained and you go ahead and try to generate content or applying, aggressive emotions, you might not get the result you're looking for because the model really never learned those emotions per se. So what we recommend to users is, if you're looking, for a model to have some variety of emotions, whether it's, let's say, you're looking to generate stories or, call center contact or context or whatever the case might be, have the data set that you're going to be uploading or sending to us in those from those contexts, so that we're able to capture the inflection intonation that you're looking for. So when the time comes to go ahead and generate those with the AI voices, when you apply those emotions, you're able to generate the results that sounds pretty close to what the original voice was. So that's a great question. Thank you for that, Aswin. Perfect. Another question's about typing in the IPA to change the pronunciation. Zoe, did you address that? Sorry, I know there was a lot of questions about the IPA and the pronunciation.
Yeah. I think I definitely did address that, but there's obviously still confusion. So perhaps this is a good indication to us that we'll maybe either do a blog post or something similar and give a more detailed tutorial on the IPA.
Perfect. Thank you. Question about there's a problem with the text in the editor vanished after processing. That's interesting. If that happens again, or if it has happened, please shoot us an email at Saqib@Resemble AI or team@Resemble AI with that problem and some screenshots of what you're running into, and we'll definitely have our engineering team take a look at that.
Yeah, or Jonathan, if it's easier, that little chat widget on the bottom left, just shoot us a message. We'll get it almost immediately.
Perfect. And yes, if you want to reach out to us, the quickest way is team@resemble.ai. Or if you already have an account online and you're on the website, as I mentioned, the intercom widget, the chat widget on the website that can those messages come to us directly as well. So yeah. Perfect. I'll give it a couple more minutes for any other questions to come through. Again, if you have any other questions that we didn't address, feel free to reach out to us on the website or team@resemble.ai, and we'll be uploading this this webinar to YouTube, and also be sharing the link. There's another question: can we control audio length while maintaining speed consistency for a single speaker?
Maybe take that one. Yeah, this is a really requested feature as well. Of kind of. I guess the question's broken in two parts. Can you control the audio length?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to say, like, I want these words to be said within, I don't know, a 4-second mark. So that's one problem that we are looking to solve. And the speed and consistency, you can get pretty good consistency if you just use the editor. So if you force it to stay around that 0.5 mark, it'll ignore the prediction or whatever bias that the AI will put in, and you can get it to be that consistently that pace for the entire sentence.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We'll do another webinar next week or the week after, and that might be around how to utilize the API. And we'll definitely share, more of the topics that we'll be hosting the tutorials and webinars for. And again, as I mentioned, if you have any other questions or something that wasn't addressed, feel free to reach out to us at team@resemble.ai, or just shoot us a question on the website, and we'll go from there.